Hey guys, Casey Santana here with the Chamber. Today we have a special guest that we wanted to share with you guys. We have Bryan Buckley. He is the founder of Hellman Valley Growers Company. He has served the United States Marine Corps in infantry, recon, special operations as a team commander in Marine Raiders. He also has been deployed to Iraq, Africa, Southeast Asia, and Afghanistan. So I am honored to have him on today. He's also been awarded with the Bronze Star with Combat V and the Purple Heart for wounds received in combat. It has led him to the cannabis industry, and that's where he has now become the president and the CEO of Hellman Valley Growers Company, known as HVGC. This cannabis brand donates 100% of their profits to fund veterans' medical cannabis research, which I think is absolutely amazing and very much needed. Bryan is also the founder of Battle Brothers Foundation, which is a 501c3 organization that helps veterans live an American dream that they fought to defend while in service. Battle Brothers Foundation was awarded an institutional review board, which falls under the FDA, to research if medical cannabis can reduce the symptoms of post-traumatic stress with U.S. veterans. The research is being conducted with the support of NiaMedic Healthcare and Research Services out of Israel and UC Irvine Health. Welcome, Bryan.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It is such an honor to have you. Thank you so much for your service. I am so glad someone like yourself has taken the battle to go and bring this up to light, because I think it's very much needed in our community. So I have a couple questions just to get familiar with who you are and what got you to where you are today. So tell us a little bit about your military career and kind of what led you to our space today.
Yeah, I grew up right outside of an area in Philadelphia, and it was like a massive football town. And I'll never forget, I'm getting recruited by the Naval Academy, and my dad's like super excited about it. And I just kind of looked at him like, you go to the Naval Academy. Like, I just want to go to college and play football and just be a college kid, right? So the military was nowhere in my purview at all growing up. But it was really the events, what happened on September 11th, 2001. I was on the football team at University of Massachusetts. We didn't have practice that night. We kind of went back to our apartment. We were just kind of hanging around, drinking some beers, watching the news like everyone else in the world was. And that's when I started seeing people throwing themselves from the building. And I'll never forget when I saw a woman throw herself out and she was holding down her dress. And I don't know, something about it just kind of spoke to me that, I'm thinking, how bad of a situation is she in right now where she thought throwing herself out of the World Trade Tower was her best option, and ultimately knowing what's going to happen to her. But yet, just having that like presence of mind to like holding her dress, like doing it on her terms with dignity or something. It spoke to me. And I know this sounds extremely corny. I just went into the bathroom and looked at myself and said, time for me to go earn my citizenship. And I knew I was going to get into that fight. So I didn't say anything to my roommates or my team. I just finished out the season. And then in the wintertime, I informed everyone that I was going to transfer to Villanova University, stop playing football, and get into the ROTC program, and then ultimately joined the Marine Corps. So a lot of shock, obviously, with that. But when I went in, I really had a clear set goal. I wanted to make into a special operations unit at some point. Started off in the infantry, went to Iraq, had a really good deployment, came back. They were like, why don't you try out for this thing called Marine Recon? Tried out for that, made it. They sent me right back to Iraq 6 months later. And then when I got back from that deployment, that's when they said, hey, we got a special operations unit. Why don't you go try out for it? And I went and I made it. And they made me a team commander. And I spent the majority of my career as a team commander in special ops, going to, Africa, Southeast Asia, as well as Afghanistan, in particular, the Helmand province. And, what made the Helmand province so volatile, it's really on the southwest part of Afghanistan. They had the Helmand River Valley rolling through it. And it's a huge heroin kind of area for the Taliban. Basically, they had the farmers throw out. They'll cultivate it into and manufacture back into heroin. They sell it, tax it, and that's how they fuel their insurgency. And they literally kind of go in the same kind of growth cycle you would in cannabis. Typically, you would see a lot of enemy activity starting up in May, and then after Croptober, come November, enemy activity dropped because they just walked back down to Pakistan. So it's a heavily contentious area, and My team was the commando team. So we were the guys in the black helicopters in the middle of the night who would fly in after high value targets. And during that deployment, I got shot up by what they call an underbarrel grenade launcher, which hit right by me and basically threw shrapnel all throughout the left side of my body, including my head. When I, kept command, we got through everything, got the guys out of there. We ended up winning that fight, but went in, had surgery. Woke up, the other two guys, they're packing up, getting them ready to send home. And my doctor's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, what's my choice? And he's like, if you want to stay, I'll keep you here. And I'm like, I'm staying. So he's like, cool. Did 2 more surgeries. And I got back out the next week in the missions. Just thank God for great doctors and nurses that we had over there. But then I got banged up again later in that deployment. And that time I had to come home. And then I kind of finished up a little more things on the Marine Corps, but I transitioned out. And that's when I was deemed 100% disabled. And it was probably around 2016. That's when I kind of popped my head up and I started seeing, it wasn't a lot of support for veterans. The active duty side was getting a ton of support, which I get. But, you kind of do your service and you walk out the door and that's it. And I was in extreme pain and just couldn't sleep. So I started Battle Brothers Foundation, just trying to help out veterans. But then someone came to me and said, why don't you try some cannabis? And it was the first night I got a full night of sleep and I was hooked at that point. And that's when I went to Congress to say, hey, what's the deal? What do we have to do to get this into the VA system? And that kind of ultimately got me to where we are today.
Wow. Well, my hat's to you because it's not often that people are ready to just go fight for this. And I think you knew that it was substantial and beneficial to you from just that evening. And you started using your voice and using that to help educate and bring light to it. So from there, I know you had mentioned that you guys are now partnered up with NiaMedic Healthcare Research. They are the one that's pushing the research in the Battle Bros Foundation and what you guys are doing there. Can you kind of tell me how that was all formed?
Yeah, I always tell people never make a comfort-based decision. It's like if you set your alarm clock at 5 and you just want to hit it and go back to bed instead of going to the gym, that's a comfort-based decision, right? So I'm up in Los Angeles and I'm absolutely getting my butt kicked trying to how can I get this done? What can I do? I'm knocking on doors. People are just telling me to go away. And I was invited to a UCLA cannabis symposium and all I wanted to do was come back down to San Diego and go to bed. But I'm like, you know what? You gave your word, go and we'll see what happens. And it was fine. But we just had a coffee break and I met this guy named Alan Blatt from NiaMedic and he served in Israeli Defense Forces. He's 100% disabled. And we just started talking and I explained to him what I wanted to do. And he loved it. And he's like, listen, it's really complex. He's like, you're going to need to get this thing called an institutional review board. And I'm like, okay, what's that? And he's like, well, it falls under the FDA and it basically gives you clearance to allow you to do human trials. And he's like, without that, you can't publish in a medical journal. And without publishing in a medical journal, no one's going to take you serious. And I'm like, okay, great. And he's like, listen, Schedule I drug, it's going to be really expensive. Good luck. And I'm like, fine, we'll figure it out from there.
Direction, at least. Yeah.
Yep. And it was literally came from a Paul Newman salad dressing bottle where it said 100% of profits to charity. So that's when I just asked my lawyer and CPA, I'm like, what if we start an adult use brand here in California and we take 100% of our profits, put it back to our research, and we can also get the word out about our mission. And they said, yeah, go for it. So we launched Hellman Valley Growers Company. And with the first $50,000 worth of profits, we had to put that back to NiaMedic to design a study design, which was titled, to see if medical cannabis can reduce the symptoms of post-traumatic stress with U.S. veterans. And there was a lot of pushback on it. They were asking for DEA licenses, all this stuff. I mean, an IRB, I should back up. It's like a panel of doctors, and they're literally giving you approval to put something into a human being. So they're really on top, I's dotted, T's crossed type of thing. Any medicine you put in your body has gone through an IRB. But our design, the guy who's leading our study is a guy named Dr. Victor Novak, who's an Israeli. He at one point was in charge of Harvard's Clinical Research Institute to show how talented he is. During the height of COVID, we lost him for a little bit because he had to run Israel's second largest hospital's COVID clinic. But great guy, has done a bunch of FDA trials. And he did this study in Israel where they had an 83% success rate, which we have a couple of doctors from Stanford on our nonprofit board. And they're like, that's a miracle drug. IRBs never hit that high. So I think with him saying, listen, I did this in Israel, I'm just doing it here with American veterans, it's safe. I think we got the thumbs up that way. And then with that, we were able to bring UC Irvine on top to be our principal investigator. So essentially, you're going to have Israeli doctors working with U.S. veterans and American doctors saying, yep, that happened, that didn't happen, validating everything. And that's really significant because when I talk to Congress, they're like, you're going to need to get data and you need American doctors. They're like, without that, we're not going to even have a conversation. So having the ability to bring UC Irvine on top was a massive win for us. And I can't even get into how long that took and all the lawyers and all that stuff we had to do. But they're in an observational role. They're not touching anything THC wise. So we're good to go.
That is some fantastic work. And I know it's a lot of work. So the effort is endless there. It's nice to see that universities are starting to embrace the idea of the R&D and having some sort of certifications behind our industry. UC Irvine and NiaMedic, they are basically the ones behind pushing the research and helping you do the testing. So with that said, can you kind of tell me the benefits that you've seen so far and some of the R&D work that you have, maybe some cases that you want to touch on?
Yeah, so we haven't started our trial yet. I mean, we're still working on the funding on that side.
Okay.
But I would just say from personal experience and what I've observed, no medical claims, there is a massive opioid and suicide epidemic happen with our U.S. veterans that we really don't talk about. And I know we know that in the cannabis community, but if you kind of pick your head up and look outside the world, people aren't really talking about it. And, there's a really disturbing study that came out of Boston University in June of 2021, where it stated during the global war on terrorism, say, September 11th, 2001 until, it's ending on August of 21, we lost 7,070 men and women on the battlefield. During that same period, we've lost nearly 31,000 active duty and veterans to suicide. So in theory, it's more dangerous for me to be on the Zoom call with you right now, Casey, than it was me operating the Helmand province or walking the streets of Fallujah or things like that, which is just completely messed up. And some of the things that have been so beneficial for me is we love donating our product. We're having an SB34 event at Ramona Cannabis Company this Saturday if you guys want to come out. All of our distillate carts have been word of mouth from veterans. What has helped them with their post-traumatic stress. So we'll design it that way. And we literally call it lightning in a bottle with one of our cultivars called Afghanimal. I'll be honest, Casey, it's better to be lucky than good sometimes. I was thinking it was cool marketing, like, okay, Helmand Valley, Afghanistan, Afghanimal kind of works. And gave it to the team over at NiaMedic just as samples, like, hey, try it out. So, like, tell me what you think. And they called me up and they're like, what did you put in here? And I'm like, oh no, I'm thinking like
good or bad, right?
And they're like, this is doing exactly what the medicine should be doing. Like the one guy was telling me, he's like, my routine is, he's like, I'll take 3 hits of my vape pen when I'm making dinner, kind of warms up my endocannabinoid system. And then he's like, and then before I go to bed, I'll smoke a pre-roll and that's it.
Yeah.
He's like, I tried that Afghanimal and he's like, I felt good. I was euphoric. My joints were loose. He's like, I was just in a great mood. So I said, heck, I'm not going to smoke a pre-roll. I'm going to smoke more of that. And he's like, it literally gave me one of the best night's sleeps I've ever had. And luckily, too, we just took second place in the Emerald Cup with that cultivar. So that's just been one of those things where I'm telling people like, hey, you're having issues with sleep, try this. And the amount of people, not just veterans, but athletes that I know who've, played in the professional or high level college sports who are definitely dealing with some issues as well. They're like, man, these things are game changers. So we know it works. We just have to kind of go through the steps of proving it with American doctors, which is fine. And, another exciting thing with part of the UC Irvine medical team, a couple of the doctors are former VA doctors, and they left after they lost a couple of veterans to suicide. And they just said, we've all been talking about it. We know there's so much upside potential with cannabis. We just couldn't get our hands on it. And they're like, that's why we're doing this right now. So everyone's there. All the dots are out there. We just need to connect them.
Yeah. I think you're doing a great job about putting it together and working with some amazing teams and organizations to really be seen and heard and to really move the needle. And so that's exciting. I'm pretty sure with that said, you guys go through a lot, not just physically, it's mental. And with that said, we do have a video that I wanted to share with everybody. So let me see if I can get that up. That kind of shows a little bit about your background, a little bit of kind of the environment that you guys are put in and why we are here today and why you're fighting for this. And so let me see if I can get that up for everybody.
I was the team commander of Marine Special Operations 8132. We would conduct raids on high-value Taliban targets or help out what we would call village stability platforms. One thing, I think people look at me kind of cockeyed when I say how simplistic warfare was, or being out in like a deployment in Afghanistan or things like that. In the Marine Corps, stuff like that to me was it just felt natural, somewhat simple. I hate to use the word simple. It just felt like natural to me. I just could do it. It's just kind of weird that was like 9 years ago. It seems like yesterday, and here I am now giving my kids vitamins. Starting up a business has to be the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life, is starting up this company. In the Marine Corps, everything's kind of like cookie cutter, and you do these things, and everything's kind of phased and planned out. Here, it's just like choose your adventure each day. So we didn't know anything about cannabis or how it worked or any of that stuff in terms of like a business side. I'll be honest, I was kind of turned on to the fact of like what we could do to help out veterans with the research side, and then also no one really knew the rules. There's a lot of upside potential, all this stuff, but it was just kind of seemed exciting to get into an industry that was just kind of really starting on the legal side. The mission, or let's just call it the end state, is to get medical cannabis into the VA system. And we're going to do it through our IRB-approved studies to see if medical cannabis can reduce the symptoms of post-traumatic stress. And what's great about that is having the team out of Israel, NiaMedic, along with the doctors from UC Irvine. Not only are we going to have data, but we're going to have American doctors validating it. And that's really what I think the legislators need on Capitol Hill. I mean, a lot more people are kind of getting turned on to cannabis. I think more people will start doing some more research, and inevitably the data won't lie. I never tell people that cannabis is for everyone, or like every veteran needs cannabis, but it should at least be a tool in the toolkit. You know, at the end of the day, our whole thing is we want to have veterans making medicine for veterans.
Thank you, Matthew. That was an amazing video. I saw some products on there that was a little bit of both. You have CBD, THC, you have live resin. It's nice to see that you're playing with the different terpene profiles and giving them the opportunity to really have the broad spectrums of the plant, because everybody's different. And I know everybody's body will, recept to it differently. And so it is exciting to see that the doctors in the states are on board and are pushing forward. And so with that, what recommendations would you have for veterans who are kind of curious? Do you have some pinpointers, or do you need, people, what are we doing with the foundation currently right now as well?
Yeah, I think, things for veterans, if you're thinking about one, if you're local in the San Diego area, we're going to have a great event here for the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce on June 22nd down at the Four Points in Sheraton. So definitely check us out, because you're going to have myself up there talking. You're going to have one of the medical professionals from NiaMedic, and as well as a former NFL player, Kyle Turley. And we're essentially just going to share our stories of how we kind of found the plant. Not that we were ever kind of seeking it. It just kind of found us and it made sense medically, and hearing what NiaMedic has to say from over their 20 years of research. So I think that'll be really impactful, and you can ask a lot of, good questions that you might be a little nervous about. I also encourage veterans, if they're thinking about it, to look and try to participate with the Veterans Action Council. It's a group I'm part of. It's veterans all around America and international. We've been doing some really great work. There's some absolute hammers in there, like people who've been in the cannabis industry for decades and changing policy at the United Nations and working hand in hand with the U.S. Congress. And it's just a good kind of place to maybe ask people like, hey, what's worked for you and what's the best route I should go? But the number one thing I always tell people is, if you're into it and you want to try it, go slow and keep a journal and just write down how things happen. What did you take? What did you feel? What time? What food you eat? And eventually you're going to dial in, what's going to be the best remedy for you, because we're all different.
Yeah. I have to say that I can appreciate some of the brands that are putting the cultivars behind, these creative names, because some of the times those names don't mean anything to a patient. And just kind of understanding the cultivars and then being more familiar with the terpene profiles of that particular cultivar, because journaling is the best way to do that. So I'm glad that you're, showing those ways. We do have some questions, so let's dive into that. I think, okay, let's go back. We had a question about funding. Once we have a question from Sophia Felix. Thank you for joining us. Once you secure funding, how long will the trial take? You have any tips?
Yeah, so the trial, it's going to be per veteran, it will be 90 days. So essentially how it works, they will come in, we'll do a phone screener, the big exclusion thing that will kind of just get you knocked out right away. If there is psychosis within your family, the Israelis are saying that's disqualified. They have seen it exacerbate psychosis. So that's just, we got to be calling balls and strikes here. There's a lot of great benefits. There could be some negative aspects to it as well. But then you'll come in, you'll get a non-invasive physical. They're going to review your medical report, and then you'll be provided DSM-5 CAPS table test, which is essentially the gold standard to rate your post-traumatic stress severity. And then from there, you're going to give a recommended treatment protocol. You would then pick up the cannabis that will be used. It'll either be in a pill or tincture form. Reason being, those have been through clinical trials. So that's why we're rolling with that. And for the next 30 days each week, a doctor from NiaMedic will call that patient and see how they're doing. Again, journal intensive, kind of do a little rudder steer left and right to kind of really dial in their treatment protocol. And after day 30, they're going to be dialed in. They're free and clear for the next 60 days. And since it's a prospective IRB, once they come back in on day 90 and they do the final physical, do another DSM-5 CAPS table test, that's where we collect the data. They would also be provided some monetary value for going through the test. So as fast as we can get through all these veterans in 90 days, we'll get that first part done. And then we're looking at moving into an additional state afterwards and working with a VA system to essentially validate that it's repeatable, accessible, having the same results. If you have it here in Los Angeles or you have it in Philadelphia, it's going to taste the same and do the same thing. At that point, we're kind of rounds complete. We'll go back up in front of Congress. I'll raise my right hand and I'll say, there's your data. There's your American doctors. Can we proceed with FDA trials with the end state of getting our product into the VA, making medical cannabis federally legal at that point? So things we are going to be kind of cognizant of is like, hey, if you're traveling outside of California for 90 days, we can't use you, right? Because legally you can't take cannabis outside the state. And those are some of the things that we've learned with NiaMedic and UC Irvine, who actually just did a pain study that they're going to publish soon. But they said that was one of the biggest holdups was people dropping out halfway through the whole entire protocol. So, hopefully we just get some really great veterans and we're going to really put the emphasis on them like, hey, this is like a mission. You can't mess around here. You got to stick to this because this is going to help save lives down the road.
Yeah. And I'm glad I saw something on your organization for Battle Bros Foundation is that you guys also help people find access to safe cannabis, meaning that it's not just black market, meaning, it's tested, the safety is there because in today's world, if you're suffering from some sort of PTSD or other type of chronic illness, if it's not tested, sometimes you may be consuming things that are not in the healthiest form. And so I'm glad that you guys are emphasizing on also helping them get access to these things. So we have another question, and actually this is not a question. This is a thank you for Marshall Verano for your service, Bryan, and your commitment to our country and helping out our vets. He says that he only wishes Congress would understand the struggles of our vets and what they deal with on a regular basis. So thank you again. And then we do have another question. How does federal regulations on cannabis impact funding sources for your research?
It does have an impact. I mean, that was one of the things NiaMedic said. It's like you're probably not going to get any federal grants coming your way. So it's like, figure this one out. So we've really just been doing it like, grassroots, where we're trying to go out and do our own events and trying to raise money. I mean, I have not even paid myself, and this all came to be in like 2016 when I started trying to put all this together. I haven't taken one paycheck since then. I mean, we're just putting everything back to the research. So if you guys want to help out, we could use it and go to battlebrothersfoundation.org and please donate because we could use all the help that we can get. And that's a great thing the Chamber's doing for us as well. And we'll have some more events. So we're hoping we can just kind of make it happen and we'll get going.
Yeah, I'm excited for our event coming up on the 22nd of this month in San Diego. It's going to be a great location, nice area, and I'm excited to see you guys on stage. And obviously people who come out, and you guys can check out the details on the Chamber's website and get the tickets for that as well. But you guys will be on the floor, so it's great that you guys will give us an opportunity to meet with you and learn more about you guys and just kind of see where we can help as a community. And so thank you again for all your time. Is there any last hitters or tips you want to put out there? I know we have the event on the 22nd. They can get tickets for that. You will be speaking. We have a representative from NiaMedic Healthcare and a retired football player. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
that's exciting. I love to see the sports athletes coming out and speaking as well. So I think this event is going to be one you don't want to miss. It's a great kickoff to our summer, especially in San Diego, a beautiful city. I think there's a veterans walk that you guys are also part of this. You guys do some hikes coming up?
Yeah, we're partnering. We're doing a SB 34 event at Ramona Cannabis Company. And it's a great time because we just bring in a lot of veteran companies and they get to set up booths. So we bring DJs, we got food, you'll have music, you have a cool gathering area. We really want to build a nice community. And we partner with Colin Wells from Veterans Walk and Talk. And we start off with a hike and then kind of bring everyone down to the dispensary. So it's just a great way to kind of bring all the veteran groups together, because that's ultimately what we need to do. We all need to be one voice in this fight and just stay together. And, there's a lot more exciting things I can't wait to discuss at the June 22nd event. So I hope to see most of you guys out there.
Yeah, definitely got to get our tickets. It looks like we have another question before we let you go. It looks like how does funding look like? What do you need to get everything going? It sounds like more of the question.
We need we're about $300K away. Okay. So we've already put in about a couple $100,000 into it. These things are expensive. You got a really detailed medical teams. I mean, this is like no joke. This is like the legit medical world. And it costs some money, but it's money well spent, because I know at the end of the day, we're going to change some lives and save some lives, more importantly.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you guys do a great cause, especially with your brand doing 100% of your profits towards the cause. I think that really gives you your purpose every day, because I know it's not easy, especially in our time. So thank you very much for all that you do, Bryan. And thank you again for your service. That is all we have for today. Again, we hope to see many of you guys at the Chamber event. This is our virtual monthly event that we usually have on a monthly basis. So we usually let you guys know through announcements on our website. Make sure you guys stay up to date on that. And then you guys, if you're interested in being part of the Chamber, you guys can also find the details on our website to join us as well. Thank you again, Bryan. We appreciate you. Have a great day, everybody.